Now on Inside California Politics, new vaccine mandates for teachers, and one of California's largest cities will now require proof of vaccination for many indoor spaces.
We think this will do exactly what it is intended to do, and that's to encourage people to get vaccinated.
Will those new rules have an impact on the recall election?
And working to gather support for Governor Newsom. How Congressmember Karen Bass is mobilizing women to participate in the recall election.
Broadcasting across the Golden State, this is Inside California Politics.
Thanks for joining us for Inside California Politics. I'm Frank Buckley in Los Angeles.
And I'm Nikki Lorenzo in Sacramento. This week, California became the first state to issue a vaccine mandate for all teachers in public and private schools or face weekly testing. The policy applies to staff members working with K through 12 students, and the deadline for full compliance is October 15th. This policy comes after last month's announcement that state employees and healthcare workers must also get vaccinated or submit to weekly testing. Also this week, San Francisco announced a vaccine mandate for most public indoor activities. It is the first major city in the country to require proof of full vaccination against the virus for a variety of spaces, including bars, restaurants, and gyms. Patrons will not be allowed to submit a recent negative test for proof of vaccination. And Los Angeles is also considering a similar move this week. The city council voted to draft an ordinance requiring patrons to have at least one dose of the vaccine to be able to enter indoor public spaces. It is still unclear, though, what that will look like and how it will be enforced. And we are now a little over a month away from the recall election, and Governor Newsom still appears to have a lot of work to do before September 14th. Capitol insider Ashley Zavala joins us now with who the governor is targeting in his new campaign.
Ashley, on Friday, Governor Newsom kicked off his Vote No on the recall campaign in San Francisco. He chose to do so in the Mission District, which has historically been home to many residents of the city's Latino community. It comes against the backdrop of our polling that shows Latino voters actually favor the recall by double digits. Do the governor's advisors think they can turn that around?
I think they're hoping to. They're hoping to get as much voter turnout as possible to hopefully make this in favor of the governor. But they won't still acknowledge that the Latino vote could really go either way. And Republicans are trying to take advantage of that, acknowledging that really that block of voters, which makes up about 30% of the state's voting population, is up for grabs.
And what about to the broader question of the polling that really suggests this is a dead heat? It could go either way. Do Governor Newsom's advisors believe those poll results?
It appears they really do, and they continue to hone that message through a lot of fundraising emails. The governor at these rallies has said that, there could be real consequences for Democrats if this recall goes through, and that's a constant reminder that if Democrats remain complacent going into this election, that someone like Larry Elder, someone like John Cox, someone with conservative values that don't meet Democratic values that have run this state for the last decade or so, would take over.
This week, the governor announced that California will be the first state to require all school staff to be vaccinated or tested weekly. Does he have the support of the teachers union on this?
I don't know that he would have made that announcement without the support of the statewide teachers unions, at least. The California Teachers Association did come out to say that this was a responsible step as California is facing complications with the Delta variant and a rise in cases and hospitalizations. And so the whole goal here is for Governor Newsom to maintain that the school year will be open and that in-person learning will be accessible. And I think that was the overall goal of making this announcement.
And staying in San Francisco for a moment, San Francisco now requiring patrons to provide proof of vaccination for many indoor activities, including bars, restaurants, gyms, and entertainment venues. Here in Los Angeles, the city is moving in that direction. Do we know if Governor Newsom is going to push for something like that on a statewide level?
We don't yet, and we've posed similar questions in the past about a essential vaccine passport system statewide in California, and months back, weeks back, he said no, that wouldn't be the case. But everything continues to evolve with as we've seen vaccine mandates for certain sectors of the economy now, state workers, healthcare workers, and the latest issue to come out with the teachers associations and staff in schools. So we'll see what happens. Really, everything continues to evolve, but the governor has not commented on this. He's just said that he plans to leave this up to local jurisdictions to make this decision, essentially.
All right, Ashley Zavala is our Capitol Insider. Ashley, thanks very much.
Coming up, the California Republican Party has chosen not to endorse a candidate in the recall election. State Senator Scott Wilk explains why this is the best move for his party. The California Republican Party decided not to endorse a recall candidate. State Senator Scott Wilk joins us now with why he believes the move will keep the momentum in the election. Senator Wilk, your party had your convention last weekend. There was a possibility that there was going to be an endorsement from the California Republican Party. Ultimately, some candidates and also some members said this was not a good idea for you to endorse a recall candidate. No candidate was endorsed. Was this the right decision?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from when the original decision was made that maybe we should endorse a candidate up until the last few weeks, it was pretty clear that that would be a bad decision on our part. I think anecdotally, I always have felt like the governor was going to get recalled. I think if you look at the polling now, it's too close to call. And so anything that we would do to diminish people's enthusiasm for the recall would be a mistake. Because the most important question on the ballot is question number one. Do you want to recall Gavin Newsom, yay or nay? And I think it's all about recalling the governor.
All right, so the party didn't endorse, but you have endorsed a candidate, former San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer. He's not been polling well. In our last couple of polls, I believe he was at 6%, then he went down to 4%. So why do you think he would make a better governor than Gavin Newsom?
I think two reasons. One, I think he can win, and more important, I think he can hold the seat in 2022 because he's shown an ability to get votes across the aisle. You know, he's twice represented San Diego as their mayor, which has a 24% Democratic registration, which is comparable to the state of California. And then number two, I think he'd be the governor in the room. You know, he knows how to govern working with people on the other side of the aisle, because really it's bipartisan solutions that are the best solutions and the longest lasting solutions. We have a governor right now that, of course, has, you know, one man power, but, you know, I know for me, I want to govern, and I think, you know, Kevin Faulconer wants to govern as well, and I do think we can reach bipartisan consensus on a lot of issues that will benefit all Californians.
So what should he be doing now to change the polling numbers to be more palatable to California voters?
I think you're going to find that he's going to be very palatable. What he has to do, and I'm sure he's going to do, is start spending his money to introduce them to those voters who don't yet know him. I think the more you learn about Kevin Faulconer, the better you're going to like.
All right, so that being said, voters are already receiving ballots in the mail, just a couple of weeks to go. I mean, what is your message to those folks that are undecided? Because as we know, this recall is going to be about enthusiasm, and that's one thing that Democrats are concerned about.
You know, as they should be. You know, as I oftentimes say that Gavin Newsom cares more about himself than he does California. And in this case, when it comes to the recall, I think he cared way more about himself than the party. I think he's going to be recalled. I don't think the Democrats have a legitimate person on the ballot as a second choice. And we already start with a 2.1 million voter advantage, because I'm telling you, every single person that signed that recall petition is going to go out and vote. So I am confident that Gavin Newsom is going to be recalled.
I want to ask you about debates. Obviously, the governor is not doing any debates, but this Republican field. So if we get past question one, then there's question two, who will replace the governor? Voters will have to pick somebody. So we have a debate coming up here on Inside California Politics next week. Kevin Kiley will be appearing, Mayor Faulconer will be appearing, John Cox will be appearing. The Republican that is leading, Larry Elder, has declined. Caitlyn Jenner has also declined, saying that unless Gavin Newsom is involved, she doesn't want to participate. Larry Elder has a similar ideology when it comes to this, because he says all the recall candidates are on the same team. Do you agree with that?
I agree that we're all on the same team, but I think it's a mistake if you're in that top tier not to participate in the debate. Case example, you know, Larry Elder, you know, right now he's leading in the polls. I'm assuming that's based upon his radio show. Me personally, I've never heard his radio show. So the only thing I know about Larry Elder is what I've read in the LA Times, and it's not been very flattering. So, I mean, when you have an opportunity to introduce yourself to the entire state, I think it's a missed opportunity for him as well as Caitlyn Jenner. And I think it's a tremendous advantage for the other three that are going to participate. I think it's a mistake not to do it.
Well, maybe they'll watch the show, listen to your advice, and change their minds. We welcome it. State Senator Scott Wilk, appreciate your time here on Inside California Politics.
Thank you for having me, Nikki.
Coming up, Congressmember Karen Bass is leading the charge on getting more women to participate in the recall election. How Women Against Recall War is mobilizing voters. Congressmember Karen Bass of Los Angeles is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus and also one of the co-founders of the Women Against the Recall, or WAR team. Chairwoman Bass joins us now with how she's hoping to move women, and especially women of color, to vote no on question 1 in the recall election. Chairwoman Bass, the most recent polling suggests that Governor Newsom is in a real race to keep his job. The polling shows that, as you know, Republicans are highly energized and are likely to vote to recall, that Democrats largely aren't paying attention, and the conventional wisdom is that that means that they are thus less likely to vote. Are we going to see a Republican governor elected on September 14th?
Well, I certainly hope not, and I believe that we won't, but that, as you described, our work is cut out for us. And so the big thing that we have to do is to let people know that they can start voting as soon as they receive their ballot. So, you know, it's great that everybody has access to the ballot. So yes, September 14th is the election, but that's actually the day the election ends. The election begins as soon as that ballot hits your mailbox. And so our effort is going to be, normally we talk about turn out the vote. Now it's turn in the ballot. And so that's what we will be saying to voters up and down the state as we text them and call them and knock on doors to get people out.
Women of color are crucial voters for any Democrat running for statewide office. As chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, co-founder of Women Against the Recall, WAR, how are you planning to energize those voters?
Well, we are talking to them. As a matter of fact, we had a call the other day. We had about 600 women, very diverse from all over the state, on the call. And we presented a statement to the governor with 1,000 signatures from women up and down the state. And so all of those women now are very active on the phones, because that's the thing. The people are going to be receiving their ballots very soon, and we want them to make sure that they turn them in the minute they receive them. I think we'll be able to do this. The other thing is that it's so important to explain why this recall is happening to begin with. Because as you know, given the makeup of our state, there's really no way for Republicans, I don't believe, to win in a general election. So the only thing they can do is a recall, and this is the 6th attempt to recall this governor. Now, we have an election next year. If you don't like him, run against him, vote against him. But to waste $200 million of taxpayers' money for an election that's going to take place in September and then again in June is really a mistake.
Latino voters could be the difference in this recall election. 2/3 of them voted for Governor Newsom in 2018, but our latest Emerson College Inside California Politics poll shows that Latino, Hispanic voters are in favor of the recall by double digits. Isn't that a disaster for the governor?
Well, it could be a disaster. However, I do believe we can turn it around. So with WAR, Women Against the Recall, we are a complete rainbow. We had the icon on our call, Dolores Huerta, who was leading the charge, you know, si se puede, make sure that we all go out and vote. And so I think with our broad coalition efforts, we're going to be able to defeat this recall, but we're going to have to work every single day to make sure that people know they're getting their ballots, vote, turn it in right away so you don't lose it.
Well, to that end, some people are saying the ballot itself and the process is confusing. Some voters are under the impression that voting yes to question 1 would keep Governor Newsom in office, when in fact they're voting yes to recall the governor. Do you have enough time to reach voters to educate them?
Yes, see, that's why we have to be on the phones. And I appreciate you raising that. I'm hoping that when this is done and when we've defeated this recall, I hope the state legislature really examines this process because it's gotten completely out of hand and it is a tremendous waste of taxpayers' money. So yes, the question that yes on the recall, the answer is to vote no on the recall, and then there's no need to vote in the next section, which is who do you want to be governor? We want to keep Gavin Newsom as our governor, so there's only one thing to vote for: no on the recall.
All right, Chairwoman Bass, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up, the recall election is heating up, and the candidates, they have a lot of work to do over the next few weeks. We will go inside the bullpen with two political experts who were heavily involved in the last recall in 2003. We are weeks away from the recall, and many voters are already starting to receive their ballots in the mail. Two political consultants join us now to break down what the recall race looks like currently. Steve Maviglio served as press secretary for Governor Gray Davis, and Rob Stutzman served as deputy chief of staff for communications to Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Steve, I want to start with you and go back to the days when you were working for Governor Gray Davis. You know, he was being recalled. He still had to govern. He still had to make tough decisions. Fast forward to Gavin Newsom right now. You know, he's facing this recall, and he still is having to deal with this pandemic every single day. And when he makes announcements like he did this week with this vaccine mandate, it has to go through that filter of, what are my critics going to say? How is this going to affect me in the recall?
Yeah, ever since the recall qualified, everything he's done has been put through the prism of the recall. You know, they say good politics equals good policy and the other way around. But there's been so many variations in what has happened to this governor over the last few months and his different approaches. He was on the road every day for about 3 months now. He's barely seen. The Delta variant has thrown a kink in the roaring back plans because people are roaring back into their homes. So that it's been problematic for him to be consistent and try to show that as a governor, he's managing this on a regular, consistent basis. And I think that's hurting him politically.
Rob, in terms of surrogates that have been out there on behalf of the governor, we're seeing these ads from Elizabeth Warren, but you know, we haven't really seen up until this week. There was, you know, this effort, Women Against the Recall. We have Congresswoman Karen Bass on our show this week talking about this, but we haven't really seen a big push yet. I mean, that has to come at some point, right?
Yeah, I mean, with all due respect to Senator Warren, she got 13% of the Democrat vote in the California Democratic primary in this last presidential election. So she certainly is well known, popular probably amongst more progressive Democrat voters. It's a get out the vote ad, trying to bring awareness. But I mean, look, the governor really needs a Joe Biden ad, and he needs it now.
Steve, where's your party?
Well, I tell you, as a loyal Democrat, I've been getting texted. I've gotten handwritten postcards. I'm one of those people that the Newsom campaign really needs to get out and vote and be enthusiastic about this. It's a simple arithmetic game for them. They have a 20% party registration advantage over the Republican, and it's up to them to get the diehard Democrats off their butts. They come home from their summer vacation, sort through all that mail, and turn in that ballot. And I think Rob is 100% right. A Jerry Brown ad would be totally effective. He's known for looking straight into the camera with a no nonsense approach. I think he needs to do that. Joe Biden needs to do that. Kamala Harris needs to do that. I think we'll see a lot of these heavy hitters in the next few weeks, but delaying it any further could be trouble.
In terms of enthusiasm, I mean, if you ask, you know, the chairwoman of the California Republican Party and also the, you know, the head of Rescue California, the recall effort, they say Republicans are enthused. We have votes. We have Republicans. We have Democrats. We have independents. Rob, I mean, what is your take on that side? If we make it past question 1 to question 2, in terms of these candidates, I mean, Larry Elder's leading right now, and then it kind of goes to people in terms of polling. They're in the single digits.
Yeah, and look, on the candidate question, you know, the Democrats are instructing Democrats, or the Newsom campaign is at least, to not vote for a candidate, just vote no on the recall and send it in. Well, that type of instruction, the Democrats will pretty much cede the field to Republicans and pro-recall voters. So that race is now functioning very much like a Republican primary. It has been from the beginning. And so Larry Elder, who was the best known of those in the field because of his career in media, radio, and being on Fox News a lot, is leading that race. And that's allowed him to raise money. He now has more money raised than the other candidates.
I want to ask you both about the Latino vote. Rob, we'll start with you. This is an area where the governor is struggling right now. Recent polling is showing that. How big of a factor do you think this is going to play in the recall, Rob?
Well, I think it's a huge factor. I think the Latino vote very well may be the story of this election. Depending on what poll you believe, there's indication that he has trouble with Latino voters. Let's use the LA Times UC Berkeley poll. That showed that 40% of likely Latino voters want to vote yes on the recall. So that's a substantial block of the traditional Democrat constituency that not only is disinterested and is saying they're not going to vote, they're saying they are going to vote for the recall. So look, a majority of Latino voters, I think, will still vote to oppose. But the question is, how many of those traditional Democrat Latinos even vote? We know that the huge growth in the Latino vote is amongst young voters. Is the Newsom campaign really reaching young Latinos with Elizabeth Warren? I'm sure there's other field efforts going on, but there's a lot of difficulty there for Newsom with Latinos. And if for some reason lightning strikes and he does lose, I think the autopsy will show that Latinos were a big part of making it happen.
Steve Maviglio, Rod Stutzman, we thank you for your time here on Inside California Politics.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki.
And Inside California Politics is hosting a statewide debate on August 19th, this Thursday, live from San Francisco. Hear from the candidates on the biggest issues facing our state. Nikki and I will be moderating. That's coming up August 19th at 7 p.m. Thanks for watching Inside California Politics.
We'll see you back here next weekend.